Okay, I guess we're live. And so, our second session yesterday went reasonably well, and I got these 2 additional shots done, which brought the edited tally for yesterday of a panic or a pickle because she hears some noise, somebody's coming into the tent, and from the other side, the back end of the tent, Mel also hears the voices, and here we have the prince. So the prince enters the tent, turns to the guard, says, "Leave us," and then, as you can see here in the storyboard, I do an extra face for Vespar, just kind of showing how he kind of pauses and feels a little awkward. I think one thing I'm going to do here is continuing to move in that direction of is injecting a little bit more of the silliness of some of the anime that I like. I think that once he moves into the tent zone, it would be good to have a Unseen has quickly snapped back into her seat and has put on her veil as ordered by the by Golek, actually. So then Vespar's like, hello. And she kind of gives a slight nod and says, "Highness. I'm looking forward to she's waiting. Yes, yes. What is it? Mel's in there. Mel's out back thinking, oh boy. Well, I'm looking forward to and then she jumps in and actually helps him. She says, "It's an honor to bring our families and kingdoms together." And he says, "Yes, it is an honor." "I know. That's what I just said." "Yes, please explain." This is funny, at least to me. I think it's funny. This is where you're seeing, you can see her attitude a lot of times. I kind of relate it to Elaine Bennis in Seinfeld. I think that's what I was thinking when I wrote it. Okay, so it snaps to the wide shot. He's like, and she's tapping her finger impatiently here. Okay. Any girl would be thrilled to. I'm not sure what her line of dialogue is there. But then what he does is let me back up to the script here. Morning, old check. Morning, dirt. Okay, so let me just see. I'm looking at the script. Oh, okay. So she says, "I'm not sure I do. Please explain." She says, "To what? Marry his royal highness in his extravagant robes?" And then he looks down like, what's wrong with my robes? Okay, and Tianara bursts out laughing. Sorry about the way the screen's jumping around. And she says, "Well, you have to admit, you do look a bit ridiculous." And so then what he does is he sort of stiffens a bit and gets, you will show respect. Uh, I have spoken. So, like, this is a guy who has no confidence at all in his level of authority. She says, "Spoken? Ha! Maybe you talk too much." And then out back, Mel is like, "Ouch." And he just gets frustrated and stomps back out of the room. So Vespar leaves, pan down, and then Monkey splits. So yeah, there's a little bit here in the storyboard that isn't explicitly written in the script. So she's irritated with him, grabs her veil, tears it off. I put in my notes here, consider the monkey to have exited. There she looks back at her avenue of escape. checks the door to make sure the coast is clear, and then she notices these swords up that are mounted on the wall. I use the word wall loosely. It is a tent, after all. Smash zoom to her. You can see she's getting an idea. Grabs the sword. Up comes the bottom of the tent, and Mel sees the hand now from outside, and he's like, he doesn't know what's going on, right? So then he scurries up that ledge that we saw, a couple weeks ago when I was animating it, to get out of Dodge, because he doesn't know what's going on. So now he's peeking over again, down at the area below, sneaks his eyes up over the ledge to kind of see what's really going on down there, sees her come out, and then he ducks. So that's his hair flying around. He ducks down for cover, and then she comes out, sort of glances around, sees again her avenue escape, which happens to be the same pathway that Mel just took. There she sees it. This shot not needed, probably not actually. So I guess when I storyboarded it, it occurred to me that maybe that was one shot that wasn't needed. So again, he does the slow peek, and so does she. Whoa! Crazy moment. So she's like, so hey, wait, watch where you're pointing that thing. She's like, who are you? She says, me? I'm nobody. You did not see me. Yeah. I mean, I can't remember what his line of dialogue is, but he's agreeable. Yeah, I didn't see any. Yeah, no problem. And then she splits. And then he remembers his mission, which is he's got to find the letter. So now he's back down at the tent, sneaking in to see if he can recover the letter, because he's got to get back on his mission. I guess I'll continue here. This is a bit fun. So this is a silhouette of him, and he sees the bag laying there. Grabs it. He's happy. He sees some action at the entrance to the tent. That's Fala coming back in with the bowl of dates. And then she realizes TNR is missing. Mel slips back out. She's like, TNR? And then Mel's got his bag, and as you guys might be able to guess, he opens it up to discover that the letter is not in the bag. Okay, then it's going to jump to this completely separate sequence, way out in the, what would you call it? I forget what you call this, like a covered, it's like a covered theater, portico type of thing, where they're actually going to carry out the wedding. And then here's Golek as the sort of master of ceremonies, and on we go. So anyways, especially when the head cheeses realize that the girl that is supposed to be married is no longer there. At which point there's some interaction that I won't necessarily get into, and now we're back at the monastery, or whatever you want to call it, and Asher's put the pieces together, realizes that Mel's really in trouble, and needs to get out of Dodge because there's basically a price on his head, and on and on we go from there, straight through to the end of the episode. Okay, so that was quite a recap, wasn't it? All right, so now let's figure out what we're going to actually do today. Hey Pen, hey Ryo Animation. I also use Tahoma and Krita. That's cool. In fact, that's so cool that I'm gonna check out your channel. Boom. Okay. Yeah, kind of getting started. Yeah, it's cool. Good stuff. All right. By the way, I'm gonna say, yesterday on Tubi I watched this Labyrinth of Flames, and found it to be I found it funny. Now it's a little bit, I was a little disappointed because I kind of liked it, and it turned out that it's just a 2-episode OVA anime series. So I got through 2 episodes and there wasn't any more, which was kind of a bummer, but it was kind of fun because it combined some of the characteristics of that I see in fairy tale. Very frenetic. It had a little bit of that really high energy thing you get from the Studio Trigger type productions. I guess we'll leave it at that. All in all, nice. It was. Let me see when that was. Yeah, 2000. So it's so 20-year-old anime. A little old school, but and just word of warning that it is a little bit liberal on the um, bottoms and bosoms and panties kind of thing. There's a lot of flashing things here and there going around, which you see, and there's quite a bit of anime that has that sort of stuff. But yeah, it was kind of fun. So if anybody wants to check that out, you can watch it right now on Tubi. If you don't know what Tubi is, it's a free video platform, TUBY, or I'm sorry, TUBI, that is advertising supported, so it doesn't cost anything. You don't have to sign up or anything like that. And the only reason I knew about it was because my distributor has, because my movies are on there, and they've had good luck with Tubi. Apparently, it was started by some guys that had their start in advertising, and they sort of got they got to jump on the pack by being just by virtue of their experience on the advertising side of things. And you know, the cool thing about Tubi is, if you're into anime, for example, you can watch a whole episode and you're only going to see one, maybe two commercial breaks, and they're only like a minute long. Sometimes they're only like 15 or 30 seconds. So the commercials aren't intrusive. If you compare that to, say, Pluto TV, it seems like an endless stream of commercials. Plus, actually, the latest Pluto TV app is really, really goofy for reasons I won't get into. So today what we're going to do is we're going to deal with Vespar coming in here, and I think that we may have the opportunity to use that bloom effect that I showed yesterday, because when he comes into the tent, I mean, it's fairly dark inside the tent, but behind him, you know, it's fairly bright outside. So from that vantage point, it should be a good place to put one of those glow behind concepts, and I kind of have an idea of how I'm going to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do today is we're going to start in Krita, get back to Krita, to create our assets. And let's see, we're going to grab our pencil. Okay, so what I'm going to do in this case is kind of try to cleave pretty close to the storyboard. I feel like the storyboard's pretty complete. And so this is going to be saved immediately as -508. Now, before I actually save it, let me backpedal one step. Before I save it, I'm going to cut the storyboard image to the clipboard and paste it in here, because when I save this, it's going to effectively overwrite the -508 ping. And because I've added that second layer, Krita is going to ask me if I want to also save it as a CRAW file, which I will do. Boom. And let's get busy. Okay, so ink and paint wise, what I'm thinking about here, I'm thinking about the layering structure. It would appear to me that what we're going to want to do is have the soldier, probably the soldier and the cloth are going to be actually one bit, because when he lowers his arm, the cloth will fall. We got to have him exit. I don't remember specifically if we see him leave, but I'm thinking what we've got is we've got a situation where Vespar's it's just moved around, and or in conjunction with the plastic tool. When I look at the next storyboard image, I can see that, let's see, this is the actual background. I'll tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and paste that one in here as well. Control V. And I'm going to scale that up. And then I think what we'll do is we'll give this one Control Insert. I'm going to go ahead and put a keyframe there. I'm going to put a keyframe on this one as well, so that I can take this keyframe and actually drag it forward. I'm just going to ballpark it at 18. at which point this layer is no longer needed. And so what I basically did was made it so this is animating in sequence. Okay. So let's save our work. Save early, save often. I have no idea what the timing is really going to want to be here, but okay, that gives us a good starting point. And what I was saying about the glow is, once we get these layers in here, we're going to have this background separate from this part of the background, foreground, whatever it is. It's actually both, since he's passing on the Z-plane through it. But so you're going to have 1, 2, a actual background, and then Vespar. And then what I'll be able to do is probably, I want to give a little bit of a caveat here, because as I'm thinking about it, if he's moving through it, that will affect the glow. But basically what we're going to want to do is take this area through here where it's really light outside, and that's what we'll find a way to turn that into the glow that sort of wraps around the characters. And I think that bloom effect would be pretty useful here. So real quick check on the comments. Golden Slime, hello. Old check, I guess you already answered this many times, but have you finished so far? Do you like have some completed episodes, or are you just starting? Okay, definitely not just starting. So I am, let me just look. Okay, so episode 1 is animated, and episode 2 is two-thirds done? Not quite. It's probably 3/5 done, something like that. I don't know. And the I'm just plugging away on the project because it's in a little bit of a state of transition. In that my I felt before I launched a crowdfund, because this is a 12 episode arc that's plotted out. And so I put together a Indiegogo pitch video based on this idea that, look, we have an animation pipeline that is working. We've got an episode complete. I've really got to jump on it, but we're ready to get voices. Obviously, I have to do the musical score, which I do that too. I mean, all the films I've written and directed, I've scored as well. I'm kind of one of those guys like Robert Rodriguez, or those kind of guys who tend to do most of it themselves, kind of thing. And anyway, before I launched the crowdfund, I wanted to have a second conversation with my distributor, because it was a conversation he and I had that led to me shifting gears from a different project to this one. He seemed quite enthused about it. And so before we launch the crowdfund, we're exploring ways. There's another, let's put it this way, there's another distribution company that, and it's not Netflix. And by the way, hi Maria. It's not Netflix, it's somebody else. But there's another distribution company out there / platform that's even an order of magnitude bigger than my film distributor, that we're going to explore the possibility that they may want to, they're going to get a preview of the pitch video so they can see what this project is, and consider the possibility that maybe they'd like to have dibs on it. In other words, help fund the show in exchange for a window of exclusivity, which means that for some period of time it would only be available on their platform. That's kind of the idea. It's by no means a foregone conclusion that they're going to bite on that idea, and I wouldn't have a clue if they would or not. It depends on what their priorities are at this point in their development as a company, because they are a company that's been around for a long time and is growing and changing pretty rapidly as they adapt to new and rebranded digital platforms. So that's kind of the convoluted story of. So we kind of wanted to chase that rabbit before we go ahead and do a conventional crowdfund. And then if we do the standard crowdfund thing, then that's basically good for everybody, because it helps raise awareness of the show. And then it would be reasonable to say that I would expect that my distributor would be pretty enthused and incentivized to help promote the crowdfund, because that just means later that they're going to increase awareness and get more sales on the back end distribution side, right? So it's basically, if I do well, they do well, is really the way it works. So, and as I mentioned last week, since they have 500,000 YouTube subscribers, they've got a much bigger voice than I do. Much bigger voice. And so, anyway, that's the story. Hope that answered your question pretty thoroughly. Old check. So, yeah, if there's any, make no mistake that this project is very real. Without a doubt, the first 2 episodes are going to get done, and will get released. And then basically, we'll see how it grabs, and could have a scenario. I mean, I don't envision this happening, but you can have a situation sometimes where something sells so badly that you have to kind of let it go and switch gears to something that's maybe a little better conceived to match the current tastes of the marketplace or whatever, So there's some stuff to consider there. But my expectation would be that this is a bit unique because it's first of all, it is a westernized anime, basically. It's combining a lot of the aesthetics of anime with a little bit of a Western sensibility. So that's why I've said many times that it kind of has some similarities to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Although that's less and less of an influence as it's been developed, for sure. Anyway, okay, so ink time, baby. Let's hit the old B key. And I think what we're going to have to do here is work in reverse. So let's get Vespar inked. And then honestly, I think what I'll do is actually create this asset right here. And I'm sure we're going to go straight to Tahoma because it really makes sense to use the Animate tools and or plastic tool to move him in this case. Hitting the Q key so that we've got stabilization, and then I'm going to go ahead and move this, get the color sort of where we typically have it for ink and paint purposes. Alright, I'm going to take the sketch and turn it down so it's not like blocking my view. And now kind of a weird little helmety thing he's got here. As you can see, I'm sort of making some minor corrections as I go. And of course, right there's a boo-boo. And I mean, for sure, does this design actually make any practical sense? No. It does not. It's just a design. I'm not even going to clarify, I don't think, whether this sort of morphs into a helmet or not. I just don't think it matters that much. Okay, so yeah. So this is actually going to come down here and then loop up. So there's going to be some wrinkle action there. Whoa. Okay, so there we have that. Now, Vespar, we've got a little bit of a winky thing here in his chin. Now this is a kind of an example where I could have actually stolen his face from another shot in episode 1. This is the first time we see him in episode 2. Alright, so he's kind of looking that way. I'm going to just give a slight indication of the... Vespar has a little bit of a turned up nose. I think of it as a Kevin Bacon nose. I feel like I did that a little too close. Hitting the A key, S key, whoops, S key, A key, little rotation, oh come on. There we go, that's a little better. B, whoops, Control Shift A, so there's no selection. And then he's got a little bit of a hollowed out cheekbone kind of thing. Again, he's kind of based on Kevin Bacon, I think. Just very loosely. I mean, if I really wanted to make him look like Kevin Bacon, I could, because I can do caricature. But that wasn't my intent. It's just his whole attitude and look just kind of struck me as being, okay, this guy's sort of a Kevin Bacon kind of character. So unfortunately now I've got to click away. Do any helmets in history make any sense? Yule Adamus asks a very wise question. And the answer, obviously it's kind of a rhetorical question, the obvious answer being, of course not. Of course not. Not at all. So I'm just trying to be cognizant of what I intended here as far as his costuming. You know, he's got a little bit of, being that he is the prince, he's kind of treated as he's almost like a military leader kind of guy, even though he's actually a kid. And I just zoomed out specifically so I could see if I did precisely what I did, which was, didn't really make those match very well. So yeah, this is just noise basically. It's just stuff. You gotta have stuff. You know, like he's got these little medals. It's really kind of funny if you think about it. I mean, you got these medals. I mean, here's a guy that's never seen a day of battle in his life, right? I mean, he's been the pampered prince. Yet he's got medals on his costume, which is like, really? Really? That's what you're gonna do? So again, this stuff is just back in the old, back in the early days of CGI. Little lines and things to be. They're just nernies. They look good-ish. They look good-ish. I wouldn't say they look good, period. And then he's got some sort of little insignia. What they call in military parlance a thingy dingy. He has a thingy dingy here on his chest, which appears to be from the sketch to maybe be reflective, which again makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But again, it kind of sort of looks okay. Looks cool-ish. I'm actually going to give him a seam down the. Not too horrid. If we solo that layer, you can see, yeah, that's pretty tight. That's pretty happening. So yeah, I'm having to click away from Krita every once in a while because Krita's been bogging a bit, and I do believe, I'm pretty sure actually, that it's because of the my drawing tablet driver. It basically needs I need a system reset, and I just haven't bothered to do it. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to balance that out a little bit. Control Shift A once again, so I can zip in here and connect the dots as it were. GE, so that I can do some lasso style erasing. BE, so I'm no longer in erase mode, and back to my brush. 5 key, and N. Yeah, I'm still not buying that actually. I'm going to use the old liquify tool. I'm going big on liquify. Yeah, that's better. Okay. We do need to think about this color scheme, don't we? This is color scheme. These fellas do have colors. Alright, what I'm going to do is, I think I will go ahead and, let me see if I hit the B key. Does that snap it out of its funk? Yeah, that's annoying. Okay. I hit the B key and I click, and all of a sudden it wakes up. Pretty weird. So what I'm seeing here is a little bit of a, actually feeling like I want to have another layer of nerdiness right there. But if I'm going to do that, so obviously we're really belaboring the detail here, which is a good or a bad thing depending on your point of view. Okay, I want to be able to see the other one. Okay, fine. So there's Vespar. All right, so often has some startlingly useful insights I have noticed over the months. Let's see, I hit the wrong key. I meant to hit A and liquefy. So appreciate your input there. Okay. So let's put him in a group, Control G. Because if we're creating these assets for animation in Tahoma, we might as well be liberal with our layers. Might as well. Okay, I'm going to unsolo the layer though because I want to see the soldier as well. And so this, I believe, is our sketch. Yep. And I want to go ahead and get the soldier inked while I'm thinking about it. Okay. So there he is, and I'm going to actually hit Control G and put him in a group as well. Soldier. Okay. Boom. Okay, B key. So as I said, it seems to me this fella probably can be drawn together with his background because they're really interacting together here. Obviously, the cloth is pretty much floating over top of the poor guy. Okay, might as well zoom in, and I'm going to hit the M key since I'm a righty. It'll make it easier to see what I'm doing or draw accurately. I'm going to give him a little bit of age, methinks. Let's hit the Alt Q and turn the stabilizer off for the moment. There we go. And just give him a little bit of well, frankly, more nernies on his face. I think that's probably suitable. Now, one could argue that if he's going to have this beard thing going on, maybe there should be a little bit of a jutting out right there. I'll buy that. Okay, so there's where his arm wraps begin. So I'm going to just put that there and make a little indication. And then cloth time. Okay. Ooh. Alright. So now he has, well, these soldiers all have, I guess, what you'd call some sort of a neck wrap type situation. That's wrong. I think this was right when I drew this originally. I actually indicated his shoulder there, so his shoulder should be kind of clamping up over the cloth of the tent, the canvas, or whatever it might be. And then he, I would say, is going to have one of these belts that many of the soldiers have had. And now I need to zip out and see if I inadvertently did what I think I did. Kind of did. It's like the guy just shrunk and lost 80 pounds. Yeah, right. Nice going there, Dave. Okay, so BE. This is actually where the drawing part can become quite fun. I'm really being careful to visualize in my mind. I was getting sloppy there for a moment with his belt, but really try to see in your head what it is you intend to do. Sometimes you have to just sketch around and find it, you know, sort of figure it out. But it's generally preferred to be able to be clear about what you're intending. That's better. And we can kind of not be too picky on his, you know, from the waist down situation. So there's the cloth from the tent. Da 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 da. That might be too much of a good thing right there. Okay, Shea Patel, year 8 says hi, hi. Okay, N key. Boom. So this is actual size. This is looking pretty good. Pretty good. So it must be said that from a design and logistics standpoint, insofar as planning a scene goes, I poorly in that our characters are moving in Z space toward us. Basically, the two hardest things to deal with in an anime, especially if things are moving slowly. If they're moving quickly, you can get away with murder. Everything works. It's like impossible to screw it up, really, if everything's moving fast. But when things are moving slowly, the hardest thing to do is something that is moving toward you, or worse, slowly turning around. And in this case, you're dancing with the idea of actually having both, right? So, yeah. I'm sure I probably could have planned better, but okay, so with that, I'm going to say, I think what I'll do is, this background is nothing. If we take that out, yeah, I think we'll just leave that out for the moment. Okay, so what we're going to do is come back over here to Vespar, and let's label our layers just so we're not getting confused later. So that's the ink. All right. So think. What's going to happen is, yeah, this is a Tahoma job. So here's what's going to happen. His arm is going to bend down a little bit. So this is probably a plastic tool job as well. His arm just comes down a little bit, and as we enter this cut, his arm lifts up just a little bit, just a little motion, so we see that he got the tent out of the way. And then we bring Vespar into the shot. So if we add a layer here, yeah, just so you guys know, I apologize for this. I should have rebooted my computer. Right now, I click new layer, click, and it's like 1/1000, 2/1000. It literally takes that long for Krita to decide, oh yeah, we're going to go ahead and create another layer. Normally this isn't the case. If I did a reboot, which would of course kill the live stream and everything, I'm pretty darn sure that would correct itself. One thing I could try though, I'm going to try something maybe here just as a little experiment. I'm going to open the... Am I going to open the... I thought I had a shortcut on my desktop for it. I'm looking for the tablet controller. Okay, so I opened the pen tablet controller on my other, which is the Artist 15.6. Interesting thing about the Artist 15.6. The issue that I'm having right now, I never had the original driver for this tablet, which I love this tablet. I actually have 2 of them. Was almost flawless. Performed great. There really was not a good reason to upgrade. With one little exception, which was in Tahoma, when you would, just add a layer here. In Tahoma, when you would grab a selection, with the stylus, if you took the stylus and went to act on the selection in Tahoma or OpenToonz, it would lose the selection. So it'd be like you'd click and you'd lose your selection. Whereas when you use the mouse, you wouldn't have that problem. You could grab any selection and immediately do whatever it was you were going to do. So when I upgraded the driver, it solved that one problem, and on many other levels it went south in a big way. It was much less performant. It was way worse. It was a big step backwards, except that one problem was solved. There was a third version of the driver, which I think was actually in between the two, that when I made that upgrade, I couldn't find the original driver to go ahead and reinstall it. I actually did get it back, and what I'm using now is kind of the driver that's sort of midway between the two. It's awesome, except once in a while you get this situation where certain programs, Krita being the likely suspect in my case, start really bogging down, and I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure it's not Krita's fault. I'm pretty sure it's got to do with the tablet driver, especially because like right now when I click here, let's see, like see down there at the bottom of the screen, it tells you, hey, middle click. Okay. Normally, when everything's working properly, you don't see that. So it's like there's this weird convolution between the standard tablet capability that are built into all Windows, which don't have pressure sensitivity, and the actual tablet driver. It's a screwy thing. It's a screwy thing. Anyway, back to work. Colors, CLR. Let's pop this down here. Click, and yep, there it goes. So yeah, about 2 seconds. Yeah, this is probably the shot I'm going to use. Okay, so I'm going to cut that to the clipboard and pop that baby in here. Boop. Okay, so this is just going to become my color reference for the soldier garb, right? That's just a shot from later on in this same episode I'm working on right now. Okay, are you on a screen or a plain tablet? Screen. XP Pen Digital Artist 15.6. Like I said, I love it, except there's just this one little issue. Alright, on my other screen, I'm actually switching to episode 1 because I want to find my shots of Vespar from episode 1. So let's jump back here. And actually there's a I was going to say here, oh yeah, here there's another one of the early soldier renditions. But what was I looking for here? I was actually looking for oh yeah, Vespar. Okay, there he is. Doo-doo. Okay, that's probably the definitive rendition of Vespar. Now he's got a little bigger eyes, and they're blue. Okay. So, I think I can fudge it on the, yeah. Okay, this is a reference. I think we can fudge it on his skin color. I think we're okay there. So I'm going to zip that up. Click, 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 click. 1. Okay, it only registered 1. Click. Oh my. Alright, so what I'm going to do here, let me consider this for half a second. First of all, I'm just, sorry about this, guys, but sometimes I have to just take a moment and think about what I'm doing. I didn't have it all 100% mapped out before I started. And while I'm here and thinking about it, I'm seeing a tangent that's really offensive. See that right there? That's like that's like the cardinal sin of animation, is having a tangent like that, where the edges just happen to line up perfectly with one another, which makes absolutely no sense. So back to the B key, not in erase mode. And I'm going to take this, smack it down there. Yeah, we got a little bit of variation in the color there. Careful, careful. And then that needs to come up to there. Okay. So color-wise, I'm just thinking that right out of the gate, his main garb should be tilted less to the blue and a little bit to the purple. Just because he is royalty. Now, since he's royalty, we probably want it to be slightly more saturated. So let's just smack that in there and then see what we have going on. Now, if he's going to have a diadem on his... I'm hitting the G key, by the way, so I can use the freehand path tool and just kind of loop this around like that. And then I can hit the fill tool and actually finish that out. Okay, so boom. Again, G key. One thing you always have to do here in Krita is switch this from curve to raw. If it's on curve, what it does is it takes whatever shape you draw and does a smoothing operation on it. And I've mentioned this a few times, but it remains true to this day that I have never had one situation ever where using the freehand path tool in curve mode turned out to be desirable. It's never happened even once. Every single time. It has only created problems. So that's one of the problems you do have with Krita from time to time, is that the tool doesn't remember its settings. Some of the settings it does remember, most of the settings it doesn't. So it can be a little bit of a frustration from time to time. Yeah. Again, G key. So what I'm going to do here is I think we want to allow him to have a little bit of a leather. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Sorry about that. Boom. I'm just putting that border in there so that I can then hit the F key and fill it in. Now, sometimes, especially if you have some softness in your pencil lines or your ink lines, there's actually some alpha sneaking through here. And you can just solve that by using the freehand path tool to draw a lasso around it and sort of tighten things up. Once everything's colored in, you can then also go into behind mode, which will only apply color where there isn't already color applied, and just go over your whole picture and it'll just kind of tighten things up. So you have been duly informed. And we'll deal with shadows completely separately, by the way, on this shot. Okay. So, you know, this is where a little bit of judicious color adjustment can be useful. I don't consider myself to be the world's greatest color guy. And, okay, that's all right. So I'm going to hit Control M. What I'm doing is I'm going to zip out just a little bit and play with this. I do think that the saturation's probably a little hot. I mean, you know, let's kind of look at the value as well. Probably something like that. And then just because, why the heck not, I'm actually going to play around a little bit with the idea of a value rotation. And honestly, I think in his case, I actually like that better. A little bit of an olive color, not necessarily explicitly being leather. Let's see. Let's do the fill tool and let's sample that color and see what happens. Oops, we have to kill our selection. Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Maybe a slight value increase here, maybe. That's probably okay. Maybe a slightly darker version of this here on the collar. Might be okay. What about the diadem color for his little, you know, what we call wingdingers? Okay, and here this is going to be this color, but it is in shadow, so boop. That's not dark enough. I'm just gonna. Now, if I was in behind mode, this would be harder to solve, but because I'm in behind mode, or because I have the color on a separate layer entirely, I can just refill over top of it, and it's fine. So it looks to me like Vespar's skin tone was closer to Mel's. It's a little more saturated, a little more, so your conventional peachy color, if you will. So boop, there's that. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and make that a tone darker, even though really that should technically maybe be dealt with it at the shadow stage. Okay, and then I'm going to zip way in here and just lasso these guys. Boom. Boom. Okay, so we kind of have Vespar blocked in, looking pretty good. Okay, so what was I talking about on the, we still need to add a little bit of detail on his costume. Again, I'm not buying the colors yet. Again, I don't consider myself great with color, but the costume seems like headdress. Now that's too saturated, admittedly, but for sure, yeah, let's take the saturation down, and now let's go over here to the lightness and just see if we can find the middle ground. Okay. Krita, you're moving a little slow there, kiddo. Okay, so I'm squinting so I can get the value right, and then I'm going to go back over here to saturation, take out even more. Let's reset that and just take it down. Okay, what about this? I'm going to hit Control F and just repeat that same process there. What happens if we do it twice? I think I'm going to live with that. Once we get the shadows in there, we'll decide what else we want to do with it. But okay, so I had mentioned about the being in behind mode. So I'm going to hit the G key, and I'm going to hit Shift Alt Q so that I am in behind mode. And then what I'm going to do is just take a kind of a neutral-ish color and literally put a lasso around everything. And the reason I'm doing that is so that anywhere that some alpha snuck through, it'll actually have a little bit of color to it. Okay, now let's add a layer here. Click. Up. Took about 1 second. 1, 2, about a second and a half. Alright, so this is going to be the shadow layer for Vespar. Boom. G key. We want pitch black. And now we're going to start dressing this up a little bit. Let's go here. Here. Definitely want to have a shadow under here. And he's going to be backlit as well, so we're going to have a second layer of shadow in this case. So this will all make a little more sense here in a minute. This probably should be something like that. Okay, now let's ratchet it down to the usual. It's usually about 12%. In this case, really important, since Maria Torres is out there right now screaming at her screen. Dave, save your work. Okay, Maria, I heard you. Psychically, I heard you. I did hear you. Thank you. I know you were shouting. Save your work, Dave. Okay, so let's go 10% on that. Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. All right, take a drink of my tasty beverage, which is Mm, water. Okay, let's go back to the color zone, and let's just think about this for half a second. I'm going to turn the shadow levels off, or layers, for a minute. Just think about what we have here. I'm feeling like there's something. Yes, there's something about just thinking this little bit of detail that sort of frames in his little diadem thing. Kind of sort of makes sense. And then let's go actually darker here. Now this, ostensibly, if it's some sort of seam, then it would actually catch light. All right. So the diadem looks dumber than a box of rocks to a degree. So what if? I don't know. I think with Vesper I'm going to stop there. I think we're probably okay. And let's close that up and then go to the soldier and get him taken care of before we go too much further. Now his color scheme is going to be basically the same as the soldier in the reference image. So we'll call this color, CLR, save that. Yeah, all the way from Brooklyn, the psychic scream travel. Yeah, see, I knew it. I knew you were screaming. I knew it was happening. Yeah, so ostensibly this is actually the same guy. Now he's got a little bit different costuming, and that's okay, but you can see it actually kind of looks like the same guy. So color this with the fill tool, boom. Yep, and we'll come back and deal with the shadows in due course, but and actually for this particular costume, he's gonna be decked out in that shade, and then I'm gonna sneeze. Bless me, bless me. Okay, G key. I'm gonna just delineate this so that I can then come in and get the fill operation to actually kind of sort of work. So there's that. F key, boom. Yeah, that worked. Okay, his little belt thingy dingy, I would assume is probably the leather color, but let's just kind of go like that for the moment, and then we'll come back in and color correct it if we need to. I would say, okay, yeah, so this needs to be a little darker tone for that. Here's his beard. Let's go in there with the G key and basically, again, we're trying to protect the leaks so that we can then hit the F key and actually color him in. So yeah, we'll just steal this guy's flesh tone, G key in behind mode, which is Control Alt Q. Lets me put a lasso over that and get everything colored in. And so the only thing that's bugging me is the belt. Okay, so I'm going to select the belt with the magic wand, which seems to be taking forever. Control M. And it seems to me that we want it to be darker, but we also want it to be less saturated. I'm going to play around with the hue too. What if we push that actually? over to the aqua blue end of the spectrum. I would say so. I would say so. Yes, I would. Now, I'm going to speak in the voice of Golik, because I like Golik's voice. Golik is based loosely on Edward G. Robinson. Not just Edward G. Robinson, though. Actually, the Edward G. Robinson playing the role of Dathan in the Ten Commandments. Yeah, believe it or not. Okay, so this is SHD. Yeah, when I conceived of Golik, that's what I had in mind. You know, he's always talking like this. He's always scheming, always trying to entice you to go along with his current plan, because his current plan will benefit you, when in fact his current plan mainly benefits himself, because that's how Golik rolls. That's how Golik rolls. Of course, if you're new here, you don't know who Golik is. So, just because I'm like a super nice guy. Hey, Arav Saxena, what time is it for you right now? This is Golik. There's Golik. He's a dirty dog. Always scheming. Anyway, yeah, what time is it for you right now? What time does your clock say? Here it's 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so now we're going to turn off the reference image. We're going to have to put the background in there. And then here, what we have essentially with the soldier, I think what we probably, well, let's just use the color. We'll just use the color layer. Okay, so the basic local color of the tent is pink. That's a fact. So I did not mean to do that right there. Control Shift A. What I meant to do was hit the fill tool. Let's see if that works ish. Yeah, it did work ish. Okay, yes, and in this case, I would say we're probably going to want a little bit of a gradient into the corner, but basically the rest can be done with the shadows. So the shadows will work together. This is a tricky shot, actually. It's a little bit tricky. We're going to need 2 layers of shadow, but it's tricky because of the way all this stuff is going to wind up moving together. So let me just kind of start getting some shadows blocked in here so that we're on the same page. I'm letting this bleed over onto him a little bit, like so. And you know, as always, guys, I reserve the right to fail. You know, I might get this smacked together and wow, good one. And I love the way I can't remember the girl's name, but the way she'd say it, it was always Moses, Moses. There's like these Z's that would sneak into the S's. Moses. Oh, Moses, make love to me, or whatever the heck she would say. Is so stupid. It's like, really? Moses, don't you understand? I love you. I love you. I must have you. That type of an attitude seems to come through all over the place, right? Um, gimme, gimme, gimme. Okay, this is going to be, let's go 15. Ah, not too bad, not too bad. And now, with that there, we can kind of tighten up the shadows on the tent cloth. And again, like I said, I think we'll be able to animate that and it'll work. So we're going to be using the plastic tool, but I also, again, want to leave the caveat in there that the one I remember, oh geez, went on to play Lily and the Munsters, Oh gosh, she was gorgeous. What was her name? What was her name? You know who I'm talking about. Maria's about to post who that was. Played the oh, I forget her name. Was she the one that loved Joshua? I can't remember. I haven't seen it in a long time. Okay, so now we're going to basically see if this is going to work. We're far enough along that we have the ability to do so. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add one more layer of shadows, and then we're actually going to jump over to Tahoma and see how we're doing as far as the implementing this with the plastic tool. This, as I said, this is a tricky shot. It's going to require some jostling around of layers in order to make it work. And there's one more thing I want to do while I'm thinking about it, which is I'm going to grab this whole group as a group. I'm going to hit the A key in liquify mode. And because I've grabbed the group, this is going to affect all the layers. And what I want to do is just straighten this. His arm looks stupid. So I'm going to straighten that, and then I'm going to come down here and just stretch this down. Okay, so now we've fixed the most egregious languishing problem. And now I'm going to go to this level, layer, whatever you want to call it. We'll go ahead and alpha lock it, and then I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go ahead and we're going to let a little bit sneak through here on the actually I should just color all that in. Yvonne DiCarlo. Oh, she was just wonderful. I really liked her in that movie. Okay, so yes, Yvonne DiCarlo. I knew you were going to chime in with that. Thank you. Thank you, Maria. Your sense of trivia is utterly flawless. Okay, so I'm going to hit the E key now. Now that I've got that in there, I can go like this, and look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Look at that, and how easy it was. This is actually a really, really kick-butt example of the opposite of the mistake people make when they use too many different value levels. This is only 3 levels of value. I mean, look at that. I'm actually kind of impressed. 3 levels of value. Light, medium, and dark. Well, and then the outline, I mean, I guess you could count that as maybe a 4th level if you want to call it the black. But anyway, what we can do now is go Control A and Control C. Now what's going to happen is everything in the soldier group is going to get cut to the clipboard. So then we come over here and we go whoop. And there he is. Okay, so now what we're going to do is, this is shot number 508, so let's immediately get our Tahoma project dialed in. So we're going to save scene as 508. Whoops. 508. Boom. Save that. And then we're also going to set our output settings. And this is going to be plus scenes, which means it'll go to the subfolder called scenes. And in the subfolder called scenes, we're going to have Tahoma create a folder called 508, and then within that there's another subfolder called render. And we render to JPEGs. And that's it. We're not going to save and render at this moment because there's no reason to. But now we're going to go save all. And when I hit save all, one other magical thing happened that you didn't see, which is this image that was just cut from the clipboard into Tahoma now is magically saved here in the extras folder. If we scan through, I'm going to probably have to hit F5 to refresh it, but if we scan through the extras folder now, I'm pretty sure we're going to find that soldier. There he is, right there. Okay? Which means we effectively have a backup of this imagery saved in the extras folder, while at the same time we've also got access to it here in Krita. And if we found out we needed to make some changes to him, which could happen, actually a good example of what could take place would be something like this. What if I added another layer here? Okay, and I'm going to alpha lock it. I'm going to take the G key, and I'm going to actually do this something similar to what I did before, but it's just going to be the opposite. So I'm saying, all right, I want to really punch up this rim light situation. Okay? Now we want to have the ability to either do it or not do it, right? We don't want to be necessarily locked in. I'm going to put that in overlay mode, and then we're just going to dial that in a little bit. Okay? So you can see that that is going to work in conjunction with the glow effect I mentioned at the beginning today. Probably quite nicely. So I'm going to go ahead and smack this in here. I'm actually kind of feeling it. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in here. Now what I'm going to do is just go Control A, Control C again, and then in Tahoma, in the level strip, I'm going to hit the S key, the selection tool, and just hit Control V and paste over it. Say, hey, I like that. And now what we're going to see is, look, this in the extras folder, this is still the old drawing. Okay? But if I come back to Tahoma and I do save all, and then I look over here in the extras folder, got to hit F5 so it refreshes, but as you can see, it now has updated to show the edge light. So, hi CGF, whom I'm going to call George because I can't pronounce your name. Okay, so I'm going to check the messages here. Tahoma 1.2 is out. What am I actually using here? 1.1. Okay. Yvonne DiCarlo, Captain's Paradise. Yep. I grew up with Grandpa Munster in New York City. Grandpa Munster. Yeah, good morning, Soda Pop. Actually called him Grandpa. So I assume, Soda Pop, that you're referring to the actor who played Grandpa Munster on the Munsters. Is that what you mean? That's pretty cool. I do not remember his name. Now, what I'm going to do here, there's different approaches here. Sometimes I would use the Animate tool or even the plastic tool to get things lined up. But in this case, we're never going to need him anywhere but... okay, that was a boo-boo. We're never going to need him anywhere but on the edge. So I'm just going to hit Shift and drag this over like that. Okay, so I'm going to dive right in with the plastic tool and see if this is going to work. This is kind of important. So I'm going to hit the X key, create a mesh, accept that. Let's go ahead and build a skeleton on this guy. I'm going to create the root. And I'm just looking at all the potential places where this guy maybe is going to bend or fold or whatever. I'm going to go ahead and add an extra node there because we're definitely going to have to move his arm. I'll just go ahead and put a node where his elbow would be. And then this is where a little bit of planning can be useful. What I'm going to do is grab, I've got this vertex here. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go around the horn up to here and just indicate what areas of this mesh I definitely do not want to be permitted to move. Okay, so again, this is, we're really winging it here. Another aspect actually in this show where you've got different pieces of your character and you draw your different pieces of your character in different areas of the screen so that they're actually not connected. And then you use the plastic tool to pull them all back together. And if you have two nodes on an object, then it will act as a rotator, right? So you can, just something to think about. Sometimes it's useful to break a character into pieces and then use the plastic tool to actually, bring them back together and then animate from there. Just a thought. Just a thought. Okay. What I'm thinking about right now is I think what I'll do is branch off from here. What I'm thinking about is I want to maybe have the ability to get a little bit creative with the cloth. Okay, so just be aware. This is something that I used to bump into all the time. It is again an artifact of my tablet driver, which is this. If I add these nodes with my tablet, you see there it was right there. If I add the nodes with the stylus, it's actually adding 2. Look at that. That's bad. I got to go through here and make sure we've got that this is clean. I must have done that with the mouse. But I just want to make sure I've got single nodes here, not double nodes, because you will run into really wacky problems if you've got 2 nodes that are occupying the same space and don't realize it. Okay, I think we're good. So I'm going to save this. Save all. And now all I'm going to do is just play with the skeleton. I'm going to play with my skeleton. Sounds provocative. And just see what happens. Okay, so there we see we have a problem. If he moves his head a little bit, which he may do, that's fine, but the problem is it creates an issue up here. So the way you correct that would be, you would, in this case, probably, actually, I would probably go from here, because this is the stuff I definitely am never going to move. So what I would do is I would just go, actually add a couple nodes across the top here. Now what will happen instead is it'll stretch. At least I think so. Okay, and we can see that we're going to have to run this all the way out to the edge. Boom, boom. Okay, and now it actually looks like kind of a wrinkle situation. Now, with one caveat, which is that we know, okay, so this is where potentially using paint rigid could be useful. I'll give it a try just to see what happens, but I haven't generally had very good luck with this. So the idea would be that this helmet is never going to change shape, right? Obviously, it's a freaking helmet. So let's see what happens now. Yeah, see, that is really not what I intended. Okay, I had a feeling. I've had very bad luck with this whole paint rigid thing. All right, so what I'm going to do is change this back. I have much better luck, infinitely better luck, by doing the following. If you're going to rotate it here, this is going to be what moves it. Just to add a few extra nodes along the edge where you don't want things to be deforming. And as you can see, again, it's not perfectly perfect because of this junction between the head and the cloth, but it does at least control the helmet. If this shot was cropped in just a little tiny bit, which we could do by using the Animate tool on the plastic tool level, then it would hide this little artifact up there and we wouldn't have to worry about it. So, but he may move his head a little bit. The thing he definitely is going to do is move his arm. And here we can see again what some of the problems are. So play around with it, play around with the plastic tool and see what you can get away with. But in this case, that's really definitely not going to be cool. So it's another problem you run into with using the I'm just curious to see what'll happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to lock that. I've never tried this where they're overlapping the way they are. So if you find this dreadfully boring, I apologize. But if we enter the scene, and when we enter the scene, he goes like that, that actually will work. Especially, as I said, if we crop it in just a little bit. So I'm actually going to create a global key here and here. You might be going, oh, wow, Dave, that looks pretty bad there, dude, actually. I know. Trust me. I know. We're going to go, I think, to frame 6. So, and boy, oh boy, I actually think maybe this is getting into some risky behavior, but okay, if this was a little quicker. Again, I'm just seeing what I can get away with here. All right, so now I'm going to hit the A key, and I'm going to go ahead and scale this guy up a little bit so that he's cropped. Yeah, I'm not buying the, you might be looking at what I'm doing here and saying, really, seriously, that's what you're going to do? You got to be kidding. Well, the thing is, the reality is a lot of times this stuff works. When it goes by quickly enough, you don't really think about it, right? So, whoopsie poo. That's actually not horrible. I'm going to leave that the way it is for the moment. We'll come back to it. Save all. Okay, let's jump back here. So what's going to happen with Vespar? Vespar is likewise going to be plasticized. And so we're just going to come back over here and smack him in there and start working with him. Let's see what we get. Okay, not bad. Same situation. Again, I reserve the right to regret it downstream, but for now, this is what we're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and... He's not going to be moving much, frankly. He's only going to move a little bit. Al Lewis. Oh, okay, that was... I assume that was Grandpa. Grandpa. So, okay. Now this is going to be interesting because what we're going to have to do is Vespar is going to go from behind to in front. So that's why this is kind of interesting. I'm not going to mess with the plastic tool at the moment. Let me jump back here and think about something for half a second. It's a good example of where, for planning purposes, framing a little wider than you expect is generally good policy. I'll not belabor the point. The key here being that Vespar is actually going to have to come up and into the shot, which to a degree seems a little goofy, which means I think what we probably ought to do is let's get rid of this key. I think I'm going to make one little change here, which is to go in here. I'm going to have to regenerate my mesh, but that's no big deal. So I'm going to go in here and we're just going to go ahead and canvas size. Let's adjust this canvas. So I need to make this taller. So let's just make this 1200 tall. Resize that. And okay, so Tahoma's being a little bit silly here. Level. Let me see if that registered. It did, and it shows here. So probably, I know this is probably a little tedious for you guys, but probably what we're going to have to do is unpipe it from the plastic tool for a moment, just to kind of see what we've got. So why are we seeing the mesh still? So what I'm trying to do is get to the drawing. What we're seeing right now is Tahoma. We're seeing Tahoma bugs is what we're seeing, because we've resized the canvas, and you can see in the thumbnail that there's all this this space underneath, but yet in the actual drawing we can't go ahead and just freaking draw in that space. If I reload the project, it's probably going to solve it. It's probably going to be just fine. So let's give it a crack. 508. And here it is. And it's still wrong. Okay, so we've saved everything. I suggest well, this might be where we have to work around Tahoma's shortcomings. Let's go back over here. Since we saved all, we should have Vespar here, and there he is. Okay, let's edit that in Krita and see what we get. Well, this is what you get. I mean, life is a series of problems to solve, is it not? So I'm kind of waiting for a second instance of Krita. Okay, okay. So that's a TIFF. Yeah, it's just as well. So what we'll do is we'll edit this in what we might be seeing here. Actually, it doesn't make any sense that you'd go to the level strip and you wouldn't see this extra real estate that we should have down here. That does not make sense. However, at the same time, it does make sense that it would be cropped in the X sheet, because the plastic tool effectively acts as a cropper. It'll wherever it draws the mesh around, any stuff that you would draw in this picture later, you won't see it because the mesh is effectively cropping it. I hope that makes sense. So here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna basically grab everything outside of Vespar and delete it so we actually have an alpha channel. And now we're just going to extend this painting a little bit so we've got a little bit more real estate at the bottom. No big deal. And I'm going to begin, okay, by not using the airbrush brush, but I'm just taking the freehand path tool and drawing some shapes. We're going to keep it loose. Keep it loose, baby. Okay, B key. Boom. Okay, and so what should happen? Okay, I use the term "should" loosely, so you guys can relate to this. This is what happens when you're dealing with some sort of technical support situation, or you're dealing with your insurance company, and you're in a hurry, and so whatever it is that needs to get done, it's really important that it get done. And the person on the phone says to you, "You should have that tomorrow," or "You should have that within 2 hours." And you say to yourself, well, or if you're me, you say to them, "You just said I should. Did you mean that I will? Or are you saying that you hope this will happen, but you really have no way of knowing if it actually will?" And boy, oh boy, I can tell you, insurance company phone reps do not like it when you ask questions like that, because the truthful answer is, yeah, actually, we're telling you that's here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to file. I'll show you how to sort of trick Tahoma a little bit. So I'm going to go save as, and I'm going to change this to a ping. Okay, I'm going to save it as a ping. Okay. So now, if we go back here to our image viewer, browser deal, you see we've got both the TIFF and the ping. Okay, no big deal. Now let's jump back to Tahoma, and we're going to trick Tahoma by grabbing this level, and we're going to go to the level settings, and we're going to change this to KG PNG, ping. And there we magically just told Tahoma to reference a different drawing. Now we're going to have a little bit of a problem still, because we need to regenerate our mesh, because this mesh is going to crop him off. Sorry, they're not connected right now. So let's pipe these two back together. Again, this is a little tedious, but it's what you need to do if you're going to have the flexibility that you would wish to have. Okay, this is interesting. I'm going to have to grab a completely new mesh. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go like that, and go like this, hit the X key, create mesh, And look at this. This is interesting. Is this? Okay, so this is weird. Once again, what we're seeing here, the only thing I can imagine doing here, this skeleton, unfortunately, it's a pretty good skeleton, but I might have to delete this level entirely. Let's do it this way. Let's give ourselves a little bit of a hedge. I'm going to take this drawing and smack it down here. And I guess, okay, let me just check this. Yeah, okay, so I think what we need to do, obnoxious as it is we actually need to scale this. So, but as you can see, every time we go to create the mesh, it doesn't quite work. So the solution, as near as I can tell, is going to be to grab this entire drawing and scale him down a little bit. How very, very unhappy. How very unhappy. So we'll apply that, and we're going to choose a different name. And as you can see, this skeleton doesn't work at all. So now we need to create a new skeleton, and basically all of this stuff is effectively worthless. All that from here to here, might as well get rid of it. And can we kind of sort of make this work? Yeah, I suppose we could. We can just move things around. Yeah, the thing is, Vespar is going to be scaled up now, so I'm not sure I'm going to be loving this. Because it's going to, obviously, if you scale it up, it's going to, well, it's going to look stretched. Duh. You know what I'm trying to say. Let's go with that. We'll take these guys. Well, I told you this shot was going to be complicated. Okay, so we'll take these guys, extend them down, and what we were really trying to do from the first place is I had said we don't want to deal with the plastic tool skeleton yet. What I want to do is go into all mode with the Animate tool, and I'm just going to kind of place this at his belly button. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to scale him down a little bit and move him back here. And now let's get him into the shot. So once he's here, I would say we're going to put him something like that. And then here we're going to bump him up a little bit, down a little bit. Okay, and then when we get here, this is the part about that's kind of interesting. Well, I was going to say that we're going to need to move him in front of the soldier, but actually we're not. So the only thing that's bugging me a little bit here is I feel like he needs to be slightly larger in the frame. Now he's smaller than the soldier, but he's also closer to the audience, right? So, and then let's give him, I'll go with it. I think we're so. Thank you, Soda Pop. Appreciate your commentary there. All right, so let's go back to the beginning here, and that worked. We're in good shape. This actually worked quite well. So again, this is kind of what I was trying to say about the soldier. Yeah, there's a little distortion with him, but did you even think about it? Now, to be fair, we didn't really actually see it move. This needs to be in animate mode. Okay, so when we cut to this shot, what we're going to see is that. Boom. And I would say this is all too slow. I'm going to bump that up a notch. I'm going to just smack this in right at the beginning. We're not even going to give this shot the old 4 frames of lead in. I don't think it's necessary. I want to cut to this and have everything in motion. Okay, so now what do we do? Well, number one, let's consider whether we're going to animate Vespar with the plastic tool much at all in this particular shot. I would say the answer is yes, so that means it would really be prudent to have a dummy layer. I'm going to put a dummy layer in here. I'm going to hit the B key. Boom. Okay, so now we've got this layer, and I just don't know if this is going to be possible, but here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to actually move. I've never done this before, so this is going to be an interesting exercise. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can go Control X, Control V, Control X, Control V. This is a little risky behavior. So what I'm trying to do, what I'm hoping I can do, is literally cut and paste the keys from the plastic tool layer to the dummy layer. Okay, and then I'm going to jump into the schematic, and I'm going to take his mesh. And by the way, actually this is wrong. This is the soldier. So, and I'm going to parent this to this. Okay? And it worked. Okay, so now why did I do that? I did that because the only indication that Tahoma gives you of keyframes being active on your levels is the little white dot. So the problem is there's no way to differentiate without going into the oh shoot, not the well, you got the schematic, and then you've got the what I can't even remember what we freaking call it, the function editor. You would actually have to go into the function editor and start fiddling with all the data on the spreadsheet if you couldn't differentiate between whether this little white dot means the Animate tool or whether it means something happened with the skeleton. We're going to have both, so it makes all the sense in the world to separate those two out. So this becomes a dummy layer that controls the overall movement of Vespar, in which, by the way, I actually feel like he is slightly large there after all. So I want to make him a little taller, but yeah, not quite so big. Okay. And now the question is, well, what are we going to do with the skeleton? So I'm going to hit the X key. We're in animate mode, and now let's just set a global key. This affects the whole kit and caboodle. And I'm just going to play around with this a little bit, whatever he's going to, because we can. It's like the worst possible reason to animate stuff. If it helps with the storytelling, fine. Okay, so the only thing I would also add to Vespar, by the way, would be an eye blink. Okay, but before we do that, we'll worry about the background and the glow later. I expect the glow is probably going to be actually brought in from Krita, but we'll get to that. Okay, Soda Pop says, well, got to get back to class, so catch y'all later. All right, see ya. So here I'm going to just hit the B key and go boop. All right, what'd you do that for, Dave? What was the point of that? What do you think you're doing? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a shape just like this, and just like this, fill those, and then hit the R key and change it to the color of the his skin. Then make this a little darker. Just go in and fix this up a little bit, and there we see the quintessential Tahoma stupidity of the fact that it doesn't really know how to deal with overlapping in the lines on a smart raster level. It's quite unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's a problem that Tahoma has, and OpenToonz has always had since it was ever first released as an open source project 3 years ago. So, is what it is, but that's okay. We're working with it, and so that's all. We just wanted that blink. I'm actually going to name that Vespar blink. Now, it's going to be important if we really want to have the blink be something that's available to use later, which we do, then we also want to go ahead and parent the blink to the plastic tool, which, of course, immediately causes it to be in the wrong place, right? And so now what we're going to do is hit the Animate tool and whoop this back into shape. This is crazy what I'm having to do right now, but it is what it is. If there's an inherent flaw, like a biggie, in my overall workflow, the way I work with Krita interacting with Tahoma, this is pretty much where I keep bumping into it, is the integration of the plastic tool. I've seen it the last couple days where the interactivity of what you're trying to do with the plastic tool along with your drawings plus a third level of overall translation animation, it gets to be a bit of a juggling match, frankly. Alright, I'm going to take this key and smack another copy of it here and see if everything worked as advertised. And it looks like it did, so that's cool. We're good. Alright, so there's the blink. File, save all. Now, the soldier says, I believe he's got a line of dialogue. Do you use Krita to draw backgrounds? Yeah, Momoristic Zundu, or Luzundu? Is that a T or an L? Yeah. Yeah, invariably, and by the way, I'm going to close this instance of Krita. Invariably, the backgrounds get done over here in Krita, so we'll get to that. In this case, this is a really unusual case in that part of the quote-unquote background is actually married to this character, specifically so that he can, you know, so that the cloth sort of flows with his arm, as you can see. And by the way, this whole strategy is going to bite me later when Vespar turns to the soldier and says, "Leave us," and then the soldier leaves. The solution is going to wind up being to completely reframe the reframe what I drew in the storyboards, because doing it from this angle would be really stupid, actually. That probably didn't make any sense, but you'll see when I get to it. Alright, so jumping back here a couple pages. Okay, so what Mel overheard way back a little while ago was, "Right this way, my prince." That's when the prince is approaching. So let me just, to be clear, let's jump back here. Okay. We actually need to pull back up episode 2. Sorry. Okay. Just trying to recap where we're at here. Okay, so when we saw this, this shot, this is the soldier saying, "Right this way, my prince." And then that's what Mel overhears. Prince, right? And then the guard says, "His Majesty Prince Vespar." So actually I was wrong, at least according to the script and storyboard. I made a boo-boo. I thought that the soldier says, "Right this way, my prince," but he doesn't. So nothing is said here. There's nothing spoken. So okay, we're fine then. So that means our job's easier. We can jump right to the background. So to jump to Momoristic Izundu's question, yeah. Let's put the sketch from the storyboard back in there. And what I'm going to do is, well, actually, I think I'm just going to just paint over this. All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my G key. I'm going to sample that color, and then right in here, I'm going to go ahead and block that in. hello, I guess we're in behind mode. Sorry about that. I'm going to go ahead and smack that in there. And then I'm going to take, and we just want a nice sky blue color. It's going to run that whole situation. And then, so this is it. All right. Now we're going to make it pretty. Again, as I mentioned earlier, it was such a great lesson to see what can be accomplished with only 2 or 3 levels of value. We don't need 15 levels of value. We don't need oodles and oodles of blending. So, and then I'm going to go ahead and give myself a shadow value as well. That's too harsh. As always, on the value triangle, if you basically click just far enough that you get the little circle to move at all, you probably have made enough of a value change. And if you go further than that, you're probably going to introduce inordinate levels of contrast that you actually did not want. Okay, so that's that. Now, let's sample our sky color. As we know, the sky is always more rich and saturated. Please sample the color. Thank you. Up high. So we've got atmospheric perspective here. Not a lot. Being careful here. But things are going to lighten as they go down, as you can see. And I'm going to go ahead and give myself just a little bit extra there. Okay, and then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sample that color, and then watch this. I'm going to cheat my little glow thing. Whoop, just like that. Just going to give a little bit of a glow situation from outside that's going to affect that background. Okay, so B key. This is going to be our cloud brush. Let's just jump down. There's a time to do everything the hard way, and there's a time to cheat. Boom, we're going to cheat. So we're going to drop the opacity down here quite a lot. Boom. Boom, up. Now let's sneak it down a little bit, and just a little bit. Okay, that's fine. That's all we need. Control C. Now let's jump to Tahoma, and we'll just go Control V. There it is. Smack it over behind, and looky there. Looky there, that was too easy. Too easy, baby. Okay, I don't like this. Okay, so let's fix it. I'm going to go back here. Now I'm going to show you how you fix things when they go wrong. Okay, I'm going to use the S key to actually just drag right along this edge right here, and hit the A key, and I want to stretch this so it's actually coming slightly over the cloud. Alright, and then for my purposes, just kind of from what I was seeing, my sense was that just a little bit of a saturation and contrast jump would probably be helpful. Just a little bit. Okay, and then one fair question would be, would some outline be appropriate? And so I'm going to hit the B key. That's my brush. I'm going to go ahead and allow this just a little bit. I'm not going to be too rigid with it because we do want to have that glow that's sneaking through. Right? Boom. And then a little bit of just, you know, hand sketchy thingy dingy. You guys know what thingy dingy means, right? Okay, so now we come back over here. We can open this up, hit the S key, and then hit Control V, and it's just going to paste over what we had there before. So now, why did I do that? Well, because I want Vespar I wanted him to pass in front of the curtain. And by the way, I see another flaw. It's kind of a stupid flaw, actually. I don't know why I didn't think of it before. But this is actually quite ridiculous in that gravity doesn't seem to exist here in the tent. Don't you understand? There's no gravity. There used to be gravity, but we did away with it years ago. Years ago. And unfortunately, my liquify tool is not giving me quite that. Let me hit escape and redo that. Probably going to turn out to be better to just repaint it. Yeah, we're going to wind up repainting some stuff. So, but yeah, gravity, you know, it's a thing. Gravity, it's a thing, people. Can we make this work? That is the question. And it's just nothing but fun to try, so what the heck, right? Boom. Okay, but the thing is that these like highlights and lines really wouldn't be like that, would they? They'd be considerably more vertically oriented. So I'm gonna be crazy here with it. I'm not gonna be too super duper careful. This is all coming down, and then I'm gonna paint over it to fix it up. Okay, so here we go. G key. So this is the yeah. Like, really, Dave? You're actually that dumb? Yes. Yes, I actually am this dumb. Okay. Now this is fine because it does suggest that there's, you know, some texture to it, and that the glow from outside is in fact doing what it does. So sorry about that, people. Well, I've always said I'm just smart enough to know how dumb I am. All right, Control C. Same situation. Obviously, gravity is a thing. We believe in gravity here at Blended Planet Productions. Gravity as a principle of physics and life in general, we believe is a wonderful thing. So now actually what I'm going to do, just because it's nothing but fun to do so, is I'm going to grab my paintbrush, and I'm actually going to modify it in here a little bit too. Yep, we're just going to stretch this down. Whoops, we got to hit the R key to sample colors, by the way. It doesn't matter. It's all good. It's all good, people. And I'm going to let this edge tighten up a little bit. And it actually, in my opinion, my very humble opinion, because I'm always very, very humble, I'm the most humble guy around. I mean, there's nobody more humble than me. In my humble opinion, gravity's overrated. I don't know about that. I'm not sure I buy that. I don't know that it's overrated. Okay, so now the question becomes, what about the glow? I'm going to show you a strategy for achieving a glow gradient thingy-dingy that you may not have considered. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at what is this going to look like when it's rendered. Okay, one thing I want to do immediately is go in and edit Vespar and tighten back up his outlines. Unfortunately, we kind of lost him because of the way we removed the background. So probably what we want to do, I'm going to say let's just grab that color, hit the B key, and we're just going to do this the hard way. We're just going to do it the hard way. B key. That's a little bold. I'm going to go from 0 to 3 and crank the hardness up a bit. Let's see what that does. And boy, oh boy, it does not want to. What if I set this to 1? Okay. That's annoying. So the brush. What if we give it this range? Yeah, I mean, that's okay, but boy, is that ugly. Oh, boy. That is there, but you know, to be fair, you're never going to notice it when you watch the show, especially because from down here it's all cut off anyway. You don't see it, but that's okay. We'll get her dialed in. We'll get her going, people. Well, one of the downsides to sharing assets between Krita and Tahoma, we're kind of getting a little glimpse of it here, which is that sometimes you get some strange pre-multiply artifacting going on. If you don't know what that is, trust me, when you see it, you'll go, oh, what's that? And if you do your homework, you'll discover that it's pre-multiplication artifacts. It has to do with the fact that when you're compositing something that's got a transparent background, essentially right at the edges, there's pixels that are sort of semi-transparent that are going from transparent to opaque. And then you got to figure out, how are you going to composite those semi-transparent pixels over whatever's underneath them? And that's what pre-multiplication is about. It's got to do with pre-multiplying the alpha values so that when you do the, in traditional compositing, the additive operation with, because when you composite two things together, what you really have going on under the hood is an opaque drawing with a mask, and it's the interaction of the masks that can result in problems and artifacts. And that's why programs like Blender and even Tahoma have an option to do pre-multiplication on imagery as needed, because sometimes the software is not able to interpret accurately whether the proper handling of the edges, which you see kind of a mess here. Now this is not because of that. This is because I used the magic wand tool to remove the background. In this case, the simplest solution is actually to just chop that off. So, you know, we're talking about a lot of stuff that you're not actually going to probably bump into for a while, so why worry about it, right? Okay, so let's jump back over here. Yeah, that looks better. Now we can see his outlines. So now the question is, how do we get the glow? Watch this. And I'm making a bold statement, but I'm gambling that I'm going to actually be able to make this work. Here's how I'm going to do it. I'm not even going to look at the imagery. I'm going to trust that I know what I'm doing here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, we know that our scene is, this is all of our imagery. So what if we do something with our scene, such as, let's do an image adjust. I do want to affect the saturation as well. But I think for now, I'm just going to do a straight curves operation. Okay? So here's the curves. And actually, I'm going to go back on what I said. I am going to look at a preview, but I'm going to put it on another panel in another window. So we want a viewer. And this viewer is going to be in preview mode. Okay, so for the moment, we'll go ahead and kind of show it here so you can at least kind of sort of see what's going on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to really, really clamp the contrast, like in a big way. Okay, and I would say no, don't want that. I wonder what linear does. Probably not horrible, actually. Yeah. Okay. So what that's doing is it's giving us a version of our output, which is almost really, really dark. And the only thing that isn't really, really dark is the stuff that's really, really bright. There we go. That's pretty much what I was after. Okay. So then what we're going to do with that is we're going to blur the sucker. Okay? That gives us this. Now that blur needs to be aggressive, so I'm going to make that 80 pixels. Okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to simply comp that over the top of the scene that's the untweaked version of it. So there's the tweaked version. And we're going to do a layer blending INO. I'm just thinking probably overlay. This is the foreground. This is the background. And okay. That's pretty aggressive, baby. That's pretty aggressive. That's really aggressive. So let's take the opacity of our overlay, hyper it down a bit. If we hyper it way down, okay, let's reverse these. Let's make this the foreground and this the background just to see what happens. Okay, and I keep having to move panels around because things get covered up. A little obnoxious. A little obnoxious. And like I just double click that and then the panel pops up on the other screen. How very silly. So there's maximum clipping mask. I don't think we're doing it as a clipping mask in this case. But that is actually gonna pump up the contrast a little bit and at the same time give us a slight glow around the edges. Nothing too heavy duty. I'm actually thinking maybe I'm going to hyper this down even a little bit. So that now if we turn that off. And let's turn that off. So there's our original imagery. There's the overlay effect. Pumps up the contrast and the saturation a bit. And then we blur it. It smooths it out, and you sort of get this thing we call a bloom or a glow. And yeah, looks pretty good. Okay. Now, after 2 hours of working on this, I think I'm ready to render. Now that's the good news. The bad news is this thing is only 4 seconds long. And I'm going to look at my storyboard and see when does Vespar say leave us. Oh, he does it right away. Okay, so now we're going to have to consider okay, I don't think he needs to I don't think he needs to, like, we don't need to flip his head from, you know, he doesn't need to look over at the soldier. In fact, it'd almost be silly if he did. So, I'm going to go here, I'm going to go DD, save all. I'm going to just make a couple duplicates because I can tell this is going to wind up being important. Why did the duplicates... Okay, this is interesting. So, okay, I think I know what just happened. Sorry about this. I'm going to delete these. Okay, this is confusing. I don't think I hit save all after I added the outlines. So when I hit D to duplicate, I think what Tahoma did was it duplicated the version of this drawing as it was before I added the outlines. What I really needed to do was hit save all. And so you can, Tahoma's actually locking up a little bit because it is saving. I'm going to actually reload the project now just to make sure we're all on the same page and things are looking the way I expect them to look. And they don't. Okay, so now this is terrible. This is horrible. This is utterly unacceptable. And again, I repeat, this is what you will run into a little bit when you start dancing this dance between Tahoma and Krita. The solution, the truth of the matter is, sharing or basically bouncing between Tahoma and Krita as far as specific images that are being edited in both is almost always a bad idea, and you see it here. This is what you get. You and I've seen it a million times, so this is not anything new. I'm not totally shocked that it happened. The solution is, if you're going to deal with raster imagery, which means plain old paintings, which even my characters, pretty much that's what they are when they come out of Tahoma. They're pasted into, or I'm sorry, when they come out of Krita, they're pasted into Tahoma as raster levels. My general advice to anyone would be, if you're going to do it in Krita, do it all in Krita. And if you're going to do it in Tahoma, use a smart raster level and do what, you know, Tahoma can do that Krita can't. But keep them separate, generally. Once you start mixing, taking a raster level and editing it in Tahoma, I should have known better, but basically this always happens. This never doesn't happen. So there is a solution, though. We can fix this. So let's go ahead and, we don't need to save this image, by the way, because, well, okay, strike that. I was going to say the individual background doesn't need to be saved. So what we do need to do is we need to grab the ping of Vespar, the big one, and we need to bring it in here as a new document. See what we've got to work with as far as the edges go. Resave it, and then yeah. So happily, it looks pretty good here. But I have a feeling if we put a bold red background, we're going to find out it's filthier than we think it is. So what I'm going to do is, okay, yeah. So, and it actually looks really clean. Okay, so that's good news. So I think the essential thing is to actually fix up these edges, tighten them up a little bit in Krita, and then resave and reload in Tahoma. And then don't make modifications to the raster imagery in Tahoma. That's a really, really bad idea, and I'm kind of sorry I did it. So yeah, that's probably okay. I'm thinking I'm going to lower this 1 pixel. And I just want to tighten up the outline. And then we'll get rid of the red background, load the sucker up into Tahoma, and see what we've got. And I have a feeling we're going to be okay. So again, the takeaway is simple. Just don't mix them. If you're going to do your characters and backgrounds and stuff in Krita, do it in Krita. And if you have to make changes to it, jump back to Krita, make the changes, and then just cut and paste it back into Tahoma. You will find that you have fewer regrets and less garbage that you have to clean up. Because, you know, Tahoma, what it just did with this image in terms of the edge, the outside edge, and or the alpha channel, whether it's a pre-multiply problem, whatever the problem is, just be aware it's a common problem and it happens all the time in Tahoma and OpenToonz. There's nothing new about it, and it's not a surprise. I just kind of wasn't thinking. It ain't no big deal. There's nothing we'd rather do than sit and draw pictures anyway, right? So, but, you know, candor, I definitely don't. I don't like having to do smaller, which was kind of necessary because of what we were doing with the plastic tool. So, is this the definitive way to do this kind of stuff? No. I mean, the whole thing could have been hand animated frame by frame, all in Krita, actually. No reason you couldn't do that. I'm going to just do a little touch up here while I'm here. Okay, so with that, let's get rid of the red background. Boop. And we should be able to just simply resave it. And then this is the part where we cross our fingers and reload it from disk and see if it looks a little bit better. And we see that it's still a little crappy, actually. But the question is it going to be a problem when it renders? It looks like it's not. It looks like we're okay. If we hit the N key, this is actual size. So I think we're okay. I think we're okay. I would say that our overlay is a little strong. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so... Okay, guys, are we good? Are we good? I think we're good. All right, so now what I said I was going to do was go ahead and put in Vespar's line of dialogue. So let's just kind of feel the pacing here. Let's turn it off preview mode and just go, leave us. Okay, okay. He comes in, blinks, leave us. Okay. So I'm going to say, let's do 7 seconds. Let's make it a nice even 56 since we like to work at 8 frames a second. Boom. Yeah, I don't think so. That's too long. Why, you ask, are we seeing that crazy artifacting that we just saw there? I will tell you, folks, I have absolutely no idea. What I am seeing here is absolutely a mystery to me. Is it still there in the render? No. So I have no idea why Tahoma is showing that the way it is. But it would not be the first time ever that we've found strange or buggy behavior in Tahoma or OpenToonz. Just saying. Just saying. Okay, so we got to put in some lip sync. Roger. Should we go ahead and put it in the blink layer? Would that be a radical, crazy, insane thing to do? Kind of. But I think we better reload our project because I'm seeing a lot of garbage here. What the heck is going on here? Wow. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just do what I was sort of suggesting, which is I'm going to go take the B key and, well, I suppose the way to do it would be, okay, stop everything. We're back to where we were before. Here's the problem. This is really a obnoxious problem to have. And I've said it before, but I'm just going to say it again so everybody who hasn't heard it is on board. Once you put your character through the plastic tool, you know, you've got the benefit of being able to do skeletal animation. There's a price to pay for it. And the price that you pay for it is you no longer have the ability to just draw directly into the X sheet. You have to go to the level strip, which means you lose the context of the surrounding drawing in the background and everything else that kind of tells you where you're at. So in this case, unfortunately, the solution is mostly to just put it on another layer. Just forget it and put it over here. Crazy, man. Having the ability, I would actually say this, at least for my workflow, having the ability to have a character modified by the plastic tool and still be able to draw on top of that character in the X sheet, you know, on a layer that is being manipulated by the plastic tool would be a big help. Big help. Now I understand the reason it's difficult is because maybe you guys can understand this already, but I'll just explain it really quickly. When I'm drawing his lip sync, I'm drawing here, but in the original drawing, this is not where he is. He was over here somewhere, and he was also smaller on the screen, so the mouth is manifestly not in the correct place. The only reason it looks like it is in the right place is because the plastic tool has moved the underlying drawing over here. So the program would have to backtrace, hey Blipton, the program would have to backtrace the proper location when you're drawing to, well, I'll tell you what the solution would be. The solution would be that you would take whatever frame you're drawing on. This is algorithmically speaking. This is what, if you're going to solve the problem, this is how you'd solve it, I think. Number one, you'd say wherever the characters are right now that you're drawing on, let's do a temporary projection of that freeze frame. And now that's what you draw over top of. However, you also have pre-calculated the mathematics so that when you're done drawing, everything that you just drew actually gets replaced back to where it would be if the characters hadn't been translated. So you've got two bits of math that would have to be done in order to be able to make it work. It could be done. You know, it's not a particularly difficult algorithm that would be required. Another thing that's very strange here is I'm seeing a little picture of Vespar instead of my color triangle. I have never seen this in several years of using OpenToonz. I have never seen this, and I have absolutely no idea why it's showing the image that it's showing. However, I do see that the value is pretty low, so maybe we can just kind of use the sliders. Which, by the way, we used to have to do it that way in OpenToonz all the time, actually. Way, way, way back in the day. Okay, that's fine. Why? Oh, I see. I used the wrong color. Fill. There we go. And I've got to make a little tweak here. This is a little obnoxious, but what I got to do is I need to color the lines and the areas in freehand mode because I actually drew the lines in the wrong color. So, sorry about that. So he says leave us, and now what is supposed to happen is the soldier is going to respond to that. So now we're into dangerous territory. Are we going to be able to make this work with the plastic tool or not? I would say the likelihood is we're not, but it's worth a try. Worth a try. Save all. Okay, so hey, looks like nothing going on in the chat, so we're cool. So here's the soldier, and what I'm going to say is that I really would like to simply have him do a respectful nod. So I'm going to hit the X key and Control C. After he says leave us, boom. Okay, so let's just get the pacing here. Leave us. Boom, right there. So right there we're going to lock a keyframe, and then over 2 frames I think I'm going to have him Okay, the only thing about this I'm not liking is I want to go back into, again, this is risky behavior, but what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a couple bones right here that are going to force his I know this seems pretty convoluted. It's like it'd be faster to just redraw the stupid thing there, Dave. This is basically to make it so we have better control over the deformation around these edges with the cloth and the helmet. Okay. And actually, by doing that, it gives us a little ability to fine-tune it a little bit. Because that is what would happen. If he leaned forward, the cloth would simply fall on him. Now, what we could do here also is turn off keep distance and maybe just sneak that down a little bit. I think that worked. And now, what we could do is go Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. So he goes ahead and nods, and then we're not going to actually see him leave the room. We're going to be cutting to, I think, TNR, if I'm not mistaken. So with that, I think we're done with this shot. I'm going to say output settings are 508. Yep, that's right. So what we're going to do is hit Control-Shift-R, render this baby out, and then jump over and cut it into the show. And then with that, this live stream session will be done. 2.5 hours, not too bad. So we're going to go here, and we're going to import number 508, scene number 508. Where are you, 508? There you are. Render, there it is, 56 frames at 8 frames a second. And now we're going to have to slip down south here to find 508. And there it is. We want no resampling going on. This is a no resampling zone. We can delete that out of the show. Okay, here he says leave us. So I'm going to get rid of that shot. We do want to keep in mind that there's this concept of Vespar sort of having a slightly awkward look towards Tianara, but we'll kind of come back to that and see what we need to do with it. So that is one resourceful monkey. So right this way, my prince. She hears that we did yesterday. Prince? Oh, jeez. And then he comes in the tent. Leave us. I'm liking it, guys. I'm liking it. I think we're in good shape. So that's that. And with that, I am going to say, hey, 2.5 hours of nice work. I expect the likelihood is I'll be back on later today as opposed to just working offline. But because I really would like to knock out at least one more shot. Now, the good news going forward is simply this. Between this shot, especially the close-up of Vespar, the next sequence of the show, we're going to get a lot of leverage. There's going to be a bunch of shots that we're going to be able to reuse, so this will help me pick up the pace a little bit going forward. So anyway, that's it. Come back later, subscribe if you haven't yet, yada yada yada. You guys know the story, and